Mhm. Every single time, I'm just surprised that like StreamYard is like, you're live.
Yeah.
Like, I sometimes use other software, Riverside, and it gives me like a little countdown. This one's just like, nope, here you go. So
You
we're
push the
live, Adam. How
button.
you doing?
You want this, right?
Right.
I'm doing well.
Well,
How about you?
good. Let me hang on. Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me. I'm Nicholas W. Full, and welcome to Person Behind the Pages, the show where we absolutely know when we're going live.
It's true.
The show where I get to talk with awesome people like Adam tonight. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. See a couple people already joining. Come and say hi in the comments. I appreciate it. So Adam, hey, it's that Bo guy. What's up, Bo? Thanks for hanging out. Adam, you of course you've got a new short story collection out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Want to talk about that a fair bit?
Yeah. So if you
Please.
are here and you haven't heard about it, about a week ago, I launched a new short story collection called Digital Extremities. I've been describing it as a sci-fi slice of life collection of stories that are all like near future. And as they progress through time. So the first one is in the late 21st century, and the final one is in the mid 22nd century.
Okay. Yeah.
So there is a feeling of progression as like technology advances and things.
And they're all sort of like they're like near future. Is it all set on like Earth or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's all very grounded. It's written in such a way. Like one thing that I was concerned about was somebody coming into this collection if they weren't familiar with sci-fi. Like I wanted it to be approachable for people who were used to reading lit fic, who were used to reading fantasy, who were used to reading contemporary stuff. Like really try and like have it be really relatable and close to home in some ways that are sometimes uncomfortable, but for the most part it does help. Like I don't have to reinvent a car, I don't have to reinvent stuff. And so I can just focus on the characters, I can focus on the story, and like that one piece of technology that's a little bit different, or the one like quirky thing about this location that's weird. Part of the fun part was to reimagine these locations as we get further and further in the future, because at first it's just kind of like the same as it is today, but maybe a little bigger, maybe like slight changes. One of the first locations that we visit is this little town in southern Quebec, Canada, called Hemingford, and it has not changed. There is nothing about that location in the story that is any different than the Hemingford that I have personally visited.
Nice.
But then as you get further along, like some of the final stories, one of my favorites was to sort of reimagine Longyearbyen, which is up in Svalbard, Norway, like our Arctic Circle kind of stuff. There's a town there. Longyearbyen itself is the biggest town in the area. It's got about 2,000 people. No hospital. No, like there's one grocery store. Like it's tiny. But in this version of the future, in the story, because of global warming and everything, it's actually, just based on my napkin math, it's kind of well suited to succeed in a warmer climate. And I can definitely see how people could kind of gravitate toward it for different reasons. And so in this story, you go to Longyearbyen and it's reimagined as like this small and dense futuristic city. And just kind of like getting a chance to explore this Arctic frontier through the lens of it being a city now, but also it's built on all this old stuff too. Like all of the names of places are like the names of mountains, the names of old mines that were like coal miners working there in like the 1900s. And so, yeah, there's like a really interesting, it was a fun way to like look into the future, but also reference the past. And yeah, I
Yeah,
realize this
yeah.
description
No,
of the
no.
story of the collection has gone on way too long, but it was
Th-
it was such a fun process.
No, that's awesome. Well, I mean, that's the kudos to you for making writing fun because sometimes it can not be. But I like the concept. Now, I think I've heard of Svalbard too. I at one point, slightly pre-pandemic, but it definitely got even way worse during the pandemic. I got into like a big click where I was checking out sailboat YouTube channels where people are just like they're on their sailboat and they're going all over the world and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure a couple went to Svalbard. And if I'm thinking of the right place, like when they left like the town, it was there's the little town and there's kind of a broader island that it's in, and there's so many like polar bears, they had to actually like have a rifle with them for their own protection.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to leave town without somebody who has a rifle right now.
Which is wild. Can you imagine? I can't like what is
Oh
what
yeah,
is
no,
it?
it's I mean it's wilderness out there.
Yeah.
It's absolutely like a very fun place to get a chance to like research and learn more about.
Did you keep that aspect of it in your story?
That aspect, no. I mean, it's a big city now.
No mandatory rifles upon leaving. Okay, fair.
There
wouldn't be as many polar bears.
There are rifles in the story, but there's no polar bears.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I mean the whole story takes place within that city and on a boat, and so there wasn't much space for polar bears on it.
Yeah, fair. One polar bear in the boat drinking a Coca-Cola. No, sounds good. Sounds really interesting, and I like that there's kind of cohesion amongst all the stories, right?
Yeah, I mean they all take place in the same world. But they don't really interact with each other a whole lot. You'll get references here and there, like a corporation that somebody's investigating in one story, maybe financed something else in a different story, or like the same company that built a robot character in one story is advertising other robots in a different one. There's a tiny bit of crossover, but it's not like a big deal. But it was fun to like see still like these echoes of past stories, and like if you read them in order, which you don't necessarily have to, but if you do, you can see how like one really obvious example of this is like about halfway through I introduced the concept of I believe I called it like light wire, which is basically just like kind of tattoo-ish wires that kind of get implanted underneath the skin, and you can kind of like make them glow and turn different colors and do kind of different things. It's like a little cosmetic, like fun thing to add.
Sure.
And then at the very end of the story, that kind of evolves into just straight up glowing tattoos, like any design you want. Which is like, again, not a huge deal for the story, but it's like a fun little way to see like, how technology is progressing in not just like utilitarian ways or combat ways, but
sure,
people just like to look nice.
Yeah, all right. Dude, I got a t-shirt that like it's a couple of skeletons and it says like I've got your back, and one of them's grabbed the spine of the other skeleton. It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
But the skeletons actually glow in the dark, and I was so excited when I realized, like, I didn't know when I bought the shirt that they some people, we like things that glow. It's fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, well, super cool. I want to kind of dive into the short stories a little bit more a little bit later. I want to I know that you're also into politics and recent events and how history influences these things. So I imagine some of that probably made its way into these stories a little bit, and I want to touch on that and see. But
sure.
But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about you, Adam. I want to talk about you, and you've written some other things. I want to talk about that briefly. You've a contributor at Fanfi Attic, so that's pretty cool. I want to mention that and maybe touch on that a little bit. You've done some map design, right? Which is pretty neat and nifty. And of course, you're the UI UX director designer at Campfire. So I want to talk a little bit about Campfire and all the things you're doing. But with that in mind, like one of the first things that I want to ask is, of course you work with Jackson Dickert, so how satisfying was it to see him get his butt kicked by Alexander Darwin?
Oh, it's everything I hoped for.
It's everything I could ever want as a coworker, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, Jackson's a great guy.
Sure.
He turns everything into just a game, or like uplifts everybody, and like it's honestly fantastic to get to work with him and just know him as a person. But sometimes you got to put him in his place.
Right. He's a wonderful guy, but also a headlock was great. funny, Bo. Yeah. So no, I love actually his one with Andy Weir has so far been my absolute favorite. But
he's killing it with those interviews. He's been talking for a long time about how like there's very little comedy in the booktube, the writer world, all that kind of stuff. Like we're all very serious people, myself included.
Sure.
I mean, we all are all talking about like the best strategies to sell our books and get noticed, and how do you make a cover, do
we
the
need
thing
to just
that you want
stick
to do.
around a little bit, right?
Yeah, like genuinely, he's been right this whole time. It just took some time to like figure out what the format was going to be, like how to approach it. It's been fun. I've gotten a chance to occasionally he'll like reach out to me and be like, I'm researching this person, what do you think about this? Or like so I've had a little bit of influence on like one or two of the scripts, which has been fun.
So like I don't want to make this the Jackson Dickert show or the the Between Two Perns fucking fan, but like just one more, like, with that in mind, has there been a point where Jackson's been like, is this too much? Because like some of the shit he said to like Andy Weir, I'm like, dude, I would never.
I know he's always trying to strike a balance between funny and like playing his role. I would not be able to point to a specific like discussion or video.
So what you're saying is he just goes a completely ham, is what he's like, I'm doing everything. I'm going as far as I can go, is what
I mean, I don't know what goes on in his head, but I know I know there's been at least one point where he's talked to me about like, where is the line, especially in the beginning when he was still trying to find it.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be able to point to like a specific conversation or video where he was talking about that.
Word. All right, well, so at Campfire, are you guys all working remote, or do you guys have an office somewhere?
Yeah. We used to have an office down in Tennessee.
Oh, really?
But we eventually went fully remote, and just it allowed us to hire more broadly. And the people who were best suited for the job,
we didn't always live in Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I'm from originally Northern New York. I moved down to Tennessee for the job, and then when I went fully remote, I'm back up north this time. I'm in Vermont now.
Okay.
So yeah, but like it's allowed us to hire, like we have people across I think 9 time zones now, from Poland to Mexico, and so it's all over the place. Like I have no concept of work hours.
Right. Yeah, I've been working all remote for 6 years. Yeah, so it's I don't know why a tech company needs an office really anymore, but
yeah, I mean, I think there are benefits to it. I do miss being able to go into a shared space and like shoot the shit and work kind of in the same space with people. But I also like that I can be anywhere I want, and I have no commute, and I can basically have any hours I want. Like there's a ton of benefits too.
Word. I'm just moving things around. We'll try this for a bit. Yeah, I know. I feel you. I like being at home, or I can go work at a coffee shop or whatever. But cool. So I'd love to hear, for anyone that doesn't know a little bit about Campfire, can you tell them a little bit about Campfire, especially as a reading platform, and kind of, I know that with Campfire, there's the opportunity for authors to have some extras. And of course, you've taken advantage of that with Digital Extremities, right?
Yeah. So Campfire is a lot of things. On one side, it is a writing platform where you can come and write your story and plan it and do whatever you need to do there. On the other side, we've recently launched a reading app as well. And so you can come and publish your story, or you can come and read other people's stories. And alongside that, with the story, some authors will offer what we call extras. And that could be a lot of different things. It could be like for Digital Extremities, what I did was I created a bunch of locations. And so basically I've got there's 8 locations in the stories. And so these location extras allow you to go in and learn more about them. There's a bunch of extra character art that I commissioned from a friend of mine, Red Pharaoh. I created a bunch of maps for all of these as well. And you just get a chance to like see a little bit more of that. I also wrote up a bunch of like behind the scenes of each story. Some of these stories are a couple of years old. And so, what was the journey going from the initial concept to the version that it's in right now? And for some, it was like very quick. It was like a couple of weeks and it was done. And my editor was like, "This is good job." And I was like, "What just happened?" And then there was the very first story in the collection was the first one that I wrote. And it went through multiple revisions over the course, not working on it constantly, of course, but the total duration was like 3 years. Lots of little changes along the way and a lot of discovery in that story, especially as well. Because when I first started it, I was kind of discovery writing. Like, I don't know, like I know that I want to do cyberpunk, but rural. But how do I do that? What's the approach? Like, what am I focusing on? What do I care about? And so there was a lot of kind of play with that.
Hillbilly cyberpunk.
I mean, a little
Not
bit.
far off. Not far, yeah.
There's pieces of it. If you squint, you look at the right story. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of what the extras in my story are. Other people will have like interactive maps, and they'll have character profiles and all kinds of fun stuff. Some people do like timelines, or but some people have, actually a friend of mine, Emery Glass, is publishing a story soon that has this really densely packed like custom fantasy calendar in it, and you can go through and like it's very fun to kind of go through that and like her conlang for the story and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like, you can do a lot with it. Basically, whatever you want to do with your story, there's probably some combination of modules that you can get it to work for it. And of course, as a reader, you just get more stuff to read. You get more stuff to learn about the world if you're enjoying it already. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love that aspect about Campfire, and like I definitely think it's a way that you're kind of differentiating. That's really cool.
Yeah, and we're trying to be very like pro author as well. So if you come and publish with us, you can publish anywhere else as well. We're not going to try and limit you. And in addition, whenever someone buys your book on Campfire, the author makes 80% of that sale. So trying to help the creators as much as possible, make it very open, friendly environment. And then, that of course helps you write more books, which we like too.
Yeah, right. I love it. So, and of course you're the UI UX user experience designer there at Campfire. Yep. What's like, I know that the kind of the broad goal with Campfire is you guys want to be, an Amazon competitor, which is freaking fantastic. I love it. And like, what's something that you've kind of worked on recently, and something, whether it's recent or maybe not as recent, but like something that really you were like, man, this was fun, and or I nailed it,
My favorite answer to this is a little bit old, but the maps module, when I first started working here, was basically just like you place an image and then you can drop some location pins on it. And that was pretty much it. And it was fine, but it didn't do a lot.
Not very robust. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the price that we were asking for it from people, and just like in general, like as a writer looking at it, wanting to do something with it, but like never feeling like there was anything that I could do with it. That was a project of mine, I think back in 2022, where I went in and just like completely redesigned it from the ground up. It's like, yes, we can pin locations, but we can also pin character locations. We can pin like the locations of your items that you need to go get, the locations of whatever you need. We're going to make these zones that you can turn invisible if you want to just use the borders on your own map. We're going to like allow you to create a scale and then measure distances so that you never get that wrong. Which is my favorite part of it. It's like the simplest little tool, but I love it so much. But yeah, that was a fun one for me just because of my interest in map design, getting a chance to not create a map designer, but like how do we elevate your map in a way that makes it more interactive, more fun for the user, and more just like even like useful for you as a storyteller, because you know the distances thing could matter.
Sure.
A more recent thing that I'm working on, what can I talk about? A more recent thing that I'm working on right now, actually very recently, we just wrapped up this project. The developers right now are working on a big update to our manuscript module, which is our text editor. And that update is going to have some stuff that people have been asking for a while. It's going to have some stuff that I think people won't necessarily be expecting. I think it's going to be very helpful for plotting and editing. And I'm very excited about it. I'm very upset. I'm writing a story right now and I can't use it because it's not live yet. And I think by the time that this is done, it's going to be releasing.
Dang it. Yeah.
I just missed it.
Well, that's cool. That's exciting. I love too that, like, you know, you're a writer. Jackson has written something, whether it's serious or not, but
I think he's got something out in submission right now.
Okay. But well, I mean, he self-pubbed, you know, his story of like, anyway. Like, are most of the folks at Campfire also writers?
That's how it started.
That's awesome.
Our CEO Jason began as somebody who wanted to do a screenplay, and Campfire was going to be the screenplay tool. Didn't quite turn out that way. We shifted hard toward novels, but that's how it started. Was him wanting to write a screenplay. Jackson, you know, myself, we are both doing writing actively. Our like marketing and social media person, Amanda, I think she's dabbling in some writing. I don't know where she intends to take it, but I have seen occasionally here and there she'll mention messing around with something. Most of our developers, though, at this point are not writers. We sometimes have to like educate them in what writers are talking about. But I think that just kind of comes with, you know, the way that we've grown, and we just needed good engineers. So
still though, I mean, you got your CEO, your chief marketing officer, your you know, UI UX designer. All of you guys are writing, and all of you are creating this software that's for writers and for readers. I mean, it's nice that like that's sort of in your company DNA, whereas compared with like Amazon, I don't really think the average person at Amazon gives two shits about like books, you know? Like even people that probably work at KDP are like, meh, you know, I don't know. I mean,
it definitely is helpful to come at it from a perspective of like, you know, if I were to use this tool, what would I want?
Right.
And I have to be careful with that, of course, because what I want is not necessarily what writers want or what readers want. And so that's why we do a lot of testing wherever we get time. Like this thing that I was working on recently that I was talking about. I did a bunch of testing on that because I mean, this is the writing tool. This is where people are writing their books in the manuscript module. Like if we screw that up, that's a big problem. So I did like a group testing on our Discord server. I did multiple rounds of one-on-one testing with people, and each of those run probably about an hour, if not more. Where I get to like sit down and just have like a real talk with somebody and learn, you know, what they think about it, how they observe how they navigate through things. They get to ask me questions about it, and of course, those are the things that they care about, and I get to see what their priorities are.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like that is a big part of it as well, is like not just like coming at it from what do we need
Yeah.
as a company and what, you know, would make sense for us in the company as authors ourselves, but
Sure.
also like trying as much as we get time to do so to reach out to other people and figure out like, you know, did we hit the mark on this?
Yeah.
And then adjusting as needed.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And again, yeah, you got like, you're doing that. You're giving that 80% to creators, which is amazing. You know, you guys are, yeah, like you're
Come
doing
publish with us. We love
right,
you.
right. Well, I think I just fucking might. So, yeah. So you talked about talking with people makes me think too. You've also, again with Campfire, but still, you've been interviewing a bunch of authors that you've done over. How long have you been doing it?
I started interviewing people with World Building Magazine back in
Oh, okay.
like 2017,
Mm-hmm.
roughly. It was like
Wow.
it was a small volunteer group, and
Yeah.
we wanted interviews, but nobody wanted to be the interviewer. And so
You're
I
like,
became the
fine.
interviewer.
Yeah.
And then I transitioned over to when I started working for Campfire. They were like, "Hey, do you want to just keep doing that here?" And so I've been publishing now with Campfire roughly like 2 to 3 interviews per month since 2020 or 2021.
Wow.
And yeah, so for Campfire alone, I've got like over 80 completed. I think it's just under that are published right now, but it'll be there soon.
Nice.
Some very fun ones coming up too.
Ooh. Well, you're gonna tease us again, huh? All right.
Actually, I think it'll be out in a few days. So I'll just say Emma Long is one that's coming up next, which
Nice.
was a very fun one. Like they are. I was not expecting them to have like such strong opinions of their own work as they did, and like express it so freely. I would ask a question, and then they would just like, you know, go off on like multiple paragraphs of tangents about like this thing or the other thing. I'm like, I'll just let you go. Sure.
You're
This is
right.
great.
That's fun with interviews too. It's like you don't necessarily always know what you're gonna get, right?
Mhm. For sure.
I love that. Like I talked with some folks where I'd like, I think I know where this, but then I'd like one of my favorite interviews was a woman named Ness Brown, who's kind of like she's a not super well known author, but she is like a legit astrophysicist at a university.
Oh, wow.
She's like a sci-fi author, and she's doing that, you know. And so we got into talking about like the Fermi paradox and where the hell are the aliens, and like, you know, like it was a very fun conversation that I didn't think we were going to go there in the beginning, but we did because we're both nerds like that, and it was fun, you know.
That's awesome.
It's a good time, right? Cool. Oh, so World Building Magazine. That's cool. I didn't know about that. Tell me about that, and tell me about like FanFi. What are you doing with FanFi these days?
Yeah, so the magazine short version is basically just they are a small volunteer group who are creating free issues that you can go read and just go download them whenever you want. They all talk about world building in different ways, mostly articles about how to world build in different ways, like everything from how to create a world 101, I think, were some of the early issues. And then like as we progressed, it got more and more specific. Like I think at one point I wrote an article for them that was world building using art in your setting to represent like gender stereotypes within a culture.
Wow.
Like
Yeah,
my art history and my anthropology muscles were just like really working on that one.
We're going to town. Yeah, right.
But it was a super fun time. I made a lot of connections through it.
That's nice.
And then it just, you know, other things became so busy that I couldn't continue. But I think they are still going on right now. Is
like the publication like specifically targeted on writers like exclusively, or is it also relevant for like
there are some
gamers,
some short stories in there as well.
Okay.
But the majority of it, the articles, are geared a lot toward writers. There's a couple of like tabletop game people in there as well that you could apply
That's
it
cool.
to, or
Yeah.
people that are just writing for tabletop
Yeah.
worlds and stories. That's kind of the vibe.
That's rad.
But yeah, they're still going. Check them out. I think they're roughly on like 2 issues a year kind of schedule right now.
Okay.
I don't know. It varies depending on how many people they have and how
Yeah.
much time those people have.
As things go with volunteer projects, right?
Yep.
Yep.
As for Fanfi,
Yep.
yeah, I joined Fanfi Addict, the review group, I think around the start of the year.
Mhm.
And it was basically just a way for me to read more because I wanted to, but I kept distracting myself with other stuff. And I was like, if I can read for other people, like the people whose books I'm reviewing, and I'm focused on like getting that review out for them, then maybe I will actually read more. And that has worked. But I mean, I'm still a slow reader, and I'm still working on. Currently, I'm working on. We're talking about this book that I just published, and I'm working on 2 more right now.
Nice.
So plus Campfire, just doing my job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not a whole lot of time, but
Right.
I have read more than I did last year, which was not a very high bar to scale. I think I read like 2 books last year. And I think I'm like at or pushing 10 at this point this year. So,
right. Well, good.
A lot of improvement.
I bet, like, I imagine then you don't do like audiobooks while you work.
No, I cannot.
Right. Same.
There are times when, I found like when I'm doing a map illustration or something, there are times when it's like, I know what I'm doing. I just have to like follow the plan and I can like shut my brain off.
I need to draw a whole forest here.
A lot of my maps are actually like more political maps, and like they don't have all of those like natural details as much, which I prefer. But yeah, but it's a lot of like getting the coastline detailed just right and all these kind of things. And when I'm doing that, it's very easy to listen to a podcast or an audiobook sometimes. I don't listen to them much, but I did have a project that I had to get through last weekend, which took a very long time, and I almost listened to an entire audiobook during it.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm actually wrapping that one up now. So
yeah. I hear you. Yeah, I generally can't really listen to audiobooks while I'm trying to focus on work either. But I kind of envy the people that can. But I also like, I'd love to read even more than I do. But there's also so much like great media and so many different formats these days, which is obviously a very champagne problem. But I got to make time to watch Only Murders in the Buildings with my wife too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, man. So yeah, you've been just doing all sorts of stuff. That World Building Magazine, Fanfi Attic, Campfire, your own stories. Very, very cool. Let's dive in a little bit more with Digital Extremities. So like what well actually let's backtrack a little bit more. Tell me about your other published work.
Sure. So about 8 years ago, I published a short story collection called A Package of Moods, which was like my leaving college project. I had written a few short stories for a class, and then I just kind of kept writing. And then that became a short story collection. I got it published with a hybrid publisher, and it was a really good experience, but it was also very, very frustrating in the sense that like I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how to, market it or get it in front of people. And then I think at one point, my ex pointed out, when we were dating at the time, she points out there's a really, really important spot where there's a typo and there's just a completely different character named. And she was like, "Why are they here?" And I was like, "I don't know." So yeah, big learning experience. We move ahead like 7 years, and I'm trying again. We're getting some stuff out again. I've been writing this whole time, but I haven't really gotten a story together that I was feeling was ready for publishing.
Mhm.
And then Campfire, I moved down to Tennessee, moved back up to Vermont. A whole bunch of stuff happened.
Yes.
But yeah, so
happens.
yeah, so now all of it's kind of coming together at a time when a year ago roughly now, I published 2 short stories in a collection edited by CD Tavanor,
Nice.
whose name I always forget. Just look up CD Tavanor. I'm in one of those. It's the most recent one. Gaia Awakens, maybe.
Okay.
It's a Gaia title.
Right. We'll find it.
Yep. And then Digital Extremities came out about a week ago. And actually, the same week, it just so happened, I was in a anthology that published 2 days later.
Oh, wow.
Blooms of Dawn, Tales of Hope by Smash Bear Publishing, a little flash fiction fantasy anthology that I submitted a story to a while ago. And it all came together very quickly at the end. But that's out now as well if you want to go pick it up.
Nice.
Very quick to get through, and I think all the proceeds are being donated to a group who's providing medical services and care to mothers and children in Palestine. So it's neat to be a part of that.
Nice. That is. I wish we didn't have to be, but yeah. That's good. Man, yeah, you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Okay, so Digital Extremities, you're self-publishing, right? But you've done some hybrid publishing previously. So I was going to ask, like, what kind of made you want to do a short story collection versus a novel? But it sounds like short stories are your jam.
Short stories are where I think I'm most comfortable. I would like to do a novel. I was working on a novel, but I haven't quite gotten it to the point where I'm happy with it. So we're going to have to. I put that on the shelf, and I'm going to go back to it later.
Good luck with that. I don't know about being happy with it, but right. No, that's cool. That's cool. And so, what made you decide to self-publish now? Right.
Basically, I've just learned more about publishing.
Yeah.
Self-publishing has also become less stigmatized.
Yeah.
There's definitely still a stigma, but it's more of a legitimate path at this point. And it's something that a lot of the people that I'm surrounded by are doing it. So like working with Campfire, there's
everyone else was doing it.
What's that?
Everyone else was doing it. I had to jump into.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, if we're being honest, I just learned more about it, and the people around me are doing it, and I'm learning from them about the things that they're doing well, what they would do again, what they wouldn't do again.
Right.
And I think between trying it on my own and understanding how that's going to work versus trying to get published traditionally, and maybe I'll get an agent, maybe I'll get a publisher. If I get an agent, maybe I get a publisher. Like I met someone this summer at a local event who has a publisher, and she's had a publisher for 3 years. And she has an agent. She hasn't found a publisher in 3 years. And it's like, do you look for a new agent? Is it a problem with the book? Like, do we just stick with it? Like, it's such a volatile space. And when it came down to it, it's like, I don't want to be left in that position, at least at the moment. I don't want to be left in a position where I'm just waiting for something to happen. And at least this way, I know that I can publish a book, and then we'll see what happens. I'm currently in that phase right now, and I think I'm going to be in that phase for about a year, where like, I don't know where this is headed. And that's okay, because it's still like something that's in my control to,
of course.
Like, if I need to promote something, I can do it. I don't have to talk to somebody about it. If I need to like write a new book, I can just do that and put it out there. And so, I mean, like, it's an evolving thing. I'm still figuring out what I'm doing, but The timelines are just so much shorter, and the quality is still there because I can bring in any number of editors that I need to. With Digital Extremities, I was very concerned about it just being not polished, because that's the first thing that you notice in a self-published thing. Like, like as soon as you start noticing typos and errors and stuff, it's like, oh, this wasn't looked at very closely. This wasn't.
Why is this character name here in the scene?
Exactly. You can see why I'd be concerned about that. So I brought in 3 different editors for that little, like, it's not a big book. Like, it's tiny. It's like 260 pages.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Like,
did you were involved at different stages too? Like, you know, like a
yes,
developmental
that
and
was
maybe
definitely
copy
part of it. Like, I had one editor who was like kind of doing developmental stuff sometimes as I was writing the stories. And then another one came in sort of like to double check his work. Not that it was not that it needed it necessarily, but just to be like another pair of eyes. And
sure.
And this particular editor, she had never really read sci-fi, and so that was a really good example for me to see, will this connect with those people who have like, this is their first sci-fi cyberpunk story. Like, you know, I use some language in this that's like very common in cyberpunk, taken from you know, Gibson and like all the stuff that they talk about there. You see it in Cyberpunk 2077, like all these different like media, but she'd never seen that before. And so it's like, was that explained well? And that was a really good kind of case study. And then the final editor was like that final polish where like everything is done. Let's just like, you know, make sure it's all working. There's no weird things that got slipped in at one point.
Nice.
So I don't know if I would do that again necessarily, but it worked really well for this particular project.
Nice. So broadly, and I want to go broad, and then we're going to get tight on your book, but broad, very, very broad. You're in this kind of unique position where you're working in this like company that's all about writing and publishing and whatnot. You've got different contacts. You talk with different writers, that sort of thing. And you've made the decision that you're going to self-publish after having worked with like a hybrid publisher. My feeling is like the sweet spot, the perfect, the most beautiful, like if you can get this, it's like, right, is hybrid publishing, where you're self-publishing probably ebooks and maybe audiobooks, but then if you have like Matt Dinneman recently got a print only deal for Dungeon Crawler Carl, so he sold the rights only for print, and they're putting out the hardbacks for all the Dungeon Crawler Carl books, and now he's in Walmart, you know. He wasn't going to be in Walmart before, you know.
I think I agree with that. Just because like I could not possibly do everything on my own. I do like, it would be nice to have somebody else kind of vouching for the book and getting it into stores and stuff. I don't need that right now, but I definitely think like if this continues and if it gets bigger, I would definitely be interested in like, okay, that like, even in the back of my head right now, I'm like, this collection of books are my self-publishing books. And this other thing that I put on the shelf a while ago, that could be a thing that I start.
That could be the trad,
that I try and do a trad thing with. And then like while that's sitting and waiting to see if something happens, maybe I do another self-pub thing.
I think that's valid too.
Like I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do think like there is a point at which it probably makes sense to bring in, or at least attempt to bring in, you know, some other people who are going to help you get your book into more places. Sure.
And I think it depends on the audience too. Like if you were writing a lit RPG, clearly like that's, you know, there's a very clear audience for that, and they're reading on like Kindle Unlimited, they're reading on Royal Road, sometimes they're reading on Patreon. Like
that's a real unique beast.
Right. But it's one, I don't think like the trad is going to help you, you know, for the most part.
I mean, I think trad's interested in it though. Like there is such a fervor for this that I think trad is beginning to take notice.
Well, they did pick up Dungeon Crawler Carl, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what does that look like in a couple of years? I have no idea. Maybe there's a couple of big names like Dungeon Crawler Carl, which like trad owns. And then there's like thousands and thousands of like all the rest that are kind of like
right.
left in the trenches.
I mean,
Or is there like a boom of lit RPG coming? I don't know.
yeah, that would be interesting. Who knows? If we had crystal balls, we'd be a lot richer, right?
I would hope so.
Okay, so let's talk about digital extremities again. Let's get like tight. So first, the cover. You know, you got the book there. You want to hold up the cover? Did you do the cover? Or?
I did the lettering on the cover.
Nice.
Ixel did the illustration.
Very
which
nice.
I think looks terrible in this light, but
well,
I don't know.
You know.
Go look it up. It's
sexy.
It's very pretty, I promise.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so it actually kind of funny. We did the front cover only because I thought this was going to be just an ebook. And then it became a paperback, clearly.
Yeah.
So I very like quickly toward the end was like, how do I turn this into a full spread that looks like it was planned?
Yeah.
And so I did the back as well, which is just simple, but I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, yeah.
I think like the
if you hadn't told me that, I wouldn't have been like, oh, that was an add-on.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know. I like the pop of color on the spine that kind of like makes it stand out on the shelf.
I like
maybe
it.
influencing some other cover designs that I'm thinking about right now. So
nice.
But yeah, so that was a fun one. Ixel did a great job. Go look her up if you're looking for an artist. And
there we go. King Tut says that is a cool cover. He's not wrong.
Thank you.
Right. And like, I mean, what the Pharaoh says so, you know, it's gotta be true.
I mean, I'm not gonna say no.
Very nice. So in Waka, like, how many stories are in the collection?
There are 8 stories in the collection.
Okay. Are they all about the same size, or does it vary a lot?
It varies. I think there's like an average. It's like roughly 5,000 words each.
Okay.
But there's one that's like 2,000. There's a couple that are like 11 and 12,000. So it varies more or less as you get further into the book. They get longer. That was not intentional, but it just kind of happened. But yeah, I think it's fairly good pacing.
Nice. I like it.
People haven't complained about it.
People haven't complained. There we go. And you said like you don't necessarily have to read them all like front to back or anything like that. You can kind of jump around, right?
Yeah, I mean they're ordered in such a way that they take place from most current to most futuristic. But if you really wanted to, like, there are very few threads connecting them aside from the fact that they all exist in the same world.
Nice.
But I mean, like, you know, one takes place in Quebec, and another takes place in Norway, and another in Argentina. So like it does trend toward like eastern, like US and Canada, but there are a few just kind of scattered all over the place. Which, I mean, that was kind of always what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just show like, I mean, the beauty of a short story collection is you do get a chance to see a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to show, this is kind of like, I've heard some people describe it as a dystopia, which I don't 100% agree with. It's more of like some dystopian things have happened. Like climate change is a really easy one. Like, it's easy to look into the future and say, the poles are going to melt.
Things continue to get worse. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
By how much? I don't know yet. But the way the book takes it is basically like, these things are happening. We're not trying to stop it anymore. It's just kind of like leveled out and we're just living with it. But what we care about is helping our families. We care about, what school we're going to go to in the new semester. We care about, this private detective looking for a lost kid. Like it's all very personal, the individual stories, and they just happen to take place in this world where people are drinking water that's been melted down from ice in the Antarctic because that's the bougie thing to do, and all of the local water resources are screwed up.
Word. Interesting. So what? You mentioned too that you're kind of interested in politics, recent events. Of course, you like and history and how it all relates to what's going on. So I imagine like some of those sorts of like interests wove themselves into the book a little bit. Like, I mean, but how much? I mean, clearly you're talking about climate change, but then again, I guess they are sort of more grounded, like slice of life stories. So are we seeing like a fair bit of like kind of politics with the stories, or is it more?
I would say that recent events, politics, all these things are on my mind when I'm writing these stories, but they're not the focus of the stories. They're really not even discussed. But the world, takes a certain shape, and these people just happen to be in it. I think if you really analyze it, like my father asked to read it, and he's like, after every story he texts me, he's like giving me these long paragraphs of like literary analysis on each story, and I'm like, you're thinking lovely, about this way deeper than I was. I just thought this world building thing was cool. He doesn't even know what world building is. But like, yeah, I think there are, pieces of it that you can definitely break down and like find some of the inspirations for these things. But I mean, like I said, the stories are about these like very personal matters, these things that are specific to that character. It's not necessarily a commentary like on, hey, global warming bad. It's like, well, we all know that. Like, that's not a thing. This is just, what if it happened in a certain way? We're still just living with it. And things are bad in some ways, but they're also good in a lot of ways. Like there's one story that talks about how, a lot of books got water damage or were destroyed during all these floods that happened when people like were caught unawares somehow by all this flooding that happens.
I can believe you're being caught unaware, but like the way that Western North Carolina just flooded.
Yeah,
when they're like 300 miles away from coast and 2,000 feet of 2,000 feet of elevation, and yet a hurricane came through now and just absolutely decimated Western North Carolina.
Same thing happened to Vermont like a year or two ago.
Really?
And like the way the mountains are formed, it's like a bowl, and a whole bunch of rain just filled it up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like I saw pictures of like, people on kayaks out to get their mail. But
books got drowned.
Yeah, so books get all this damage. But at the same time, like the story is about somebody who is recovering those damaged books and then like immortalizing them in digital form.
Cool.
Because like the big companies won't do it, so me, the little guy, will. That's not what the story is necessarily about, but the character is doing that. And so like I did look for ways to kind of have that duality of like, here's this bad thing, but here's this good thing that is like related to it somehow, or like it's not that big of a deal to this character, like whatever the case may be. It was always a battle, like in writing these stories, it's always a battle of balancing like those pseudo dystopian things that are happening that cyberpunk or like near future stories are so good at, versus I don't want it to be purely disappointing. I don't want it to be like purely depressing. I do want people to have fun. I want people to see like maybe one or two happy endings.
Sure.
So
I like that. It sounds like, I mean, a lot of it's kind of stories of perseverance, right?
Yeah, I mean, it takes different forms. Like sometimes the perseverance is you cut this bad thing out of your life. Sometimes it's you overcome it. Sometimes you do succumb to it, and that is maybe
that
not a good
too.
option, but it's a thing that happens.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so kind of as we're wrapping up a little bit of the discussion, like what has been you've already got some reviews in, I'm sure, right? What's been like a review that sort of stuck out to you?
I was thrilled to get the blurbs that I wanted.
Nice.
I reached out to a couple of people very early on to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they would have time, and they were kind enough to try the book out, even though they had a very tenuous knowledge of who I was. We'd spoken before, like it wasn't a cold contact for any of them, but
Sure.
it was very like a few of them. It was like, hey, remember when we talked about this thing in 2022?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, Susan Palumbo, T.R. Napper, Tim Hickson, Hello Future Me, they
Oh, right.
were extremely kind and gave the book a shot. Gave me some wonderful quotes. Susan, who's writing, I think I've already mentioned earlier this evening. I love her writing so much, and she called mine beautifully written. It was like, oh, that means so much coming from you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's
and
lovely.
just like the mere fact that these people are like giving me their time at all
Yeah.
is just like thrilling. There was one random reviewer who I met when I was giving out ARC copies. I think it was just someone who kind of like I stumbled across on Reddit. And I wasn't expecting anything from anybody on Reddit
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think you can just like mentally.
That's the right way to approach Reddit. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and I was correct with most of those people who signed up for the ARC
Uh-huh.
on through that link, but a few of them did come through, and this one person in particular, Mia, the quote that I keep coming back to, I think comes toward the end of her review. And she's just like, this is exactly what I was hoping for. This is exactly what I wanted. Like 5 stars. Like I think she sent me a reel on Instagram today, showing that she had the book in her hands. Which is just like, I wasn't
Yes.
expecting that.
Right, right. That's cool. That's
Yeah.
nice. But I love that about the book community, though. Like, I mean, everyone is always so welcoming and so
Mhm.
eager to help each other because ultimately, all we want is more stories, right?
Yeah,
All
and
we
that's
want is
that's
more
why I
great
love
stories,
to have chats like this, where it's like
right?
we get to shoot the shit a little bit, but at the same
Right?
time, like I'm hoping maybe someone has learned something that they can use for their own book at some point through this. Where I don't know if it's you can self-publish or
Yeah, right. They've
don't trust Reddit.
true, true, true. No, they've learned that they need to go get digital extremities and they need to be using Campfire. I mean,
Yeah,
those are
the,
the
the
two
way
big
to
things.
make your book better is to read mine. Go get digital extremities.
Perfect, man. Okay. Adam, it has been a delight talking with you. Where can people find and follow you online, sir?
You can find me at Adam C. Bassett on Threads, Instagram, Twitter. You can go to my website if you want, adamcbassett.com. You can find me on Goodreads. Go rate the Digital Extremities once you've read it. We got to make Big Number go up. Uh, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I'm very easy to find. Reach out to me if you have any questions about publishing. I know we haven't talked about that too much lately, but I'm happy to help you if you have questions about your book. If you want to get something on Campfire, like let's just chat. It's all good.
Nice, nice. Love it. Love it. Well, yeah, this has been an absolute delight talking with you. Everyone should definitely be going out and getting digital extremities. I mean, who doesn't need a little sci-fi love? And like, I love that it's short. So, you got
So
some of those,
short.
right? Right?
Yeah,
Little, little
I've already
nice,
done it.
there you go. Already done. All right.
Listen, if I read it 12 times plus during editing,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
read it once.
You can read it once. That's funny. It's true. True. Go get digital extremities. Go right on Campfire. And Adam and everyone watching, if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend. Wait. Yeah, always.